Well, hello and welcome to Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. This is Sandi, and I apologize. I was supposed to be on at 9 o'clock this morning. I was doing some stuff that was involves a video later, if I can get it to work. And sometimes, did you ever have those mornings that it's so frustrating that things are not going the way that they're supposed to? Hello, Karen. I apologize that it was just a morning. Where that's how we're going to leave it. It's one of those mornings. And for me, I just got so frustrated with trying to do something that wasn't working. And I just didn't even think when it got past 9 o'clock. And I went outside because when I get frustrated, what do? I want to pull weeds. And so I apologize. And I started doing other stuff. And then I said to Jill, oh my gosh, I have missed my live at 9 o'clock. I was just so frustrated. And I said, okay, I'm going to settle down. I'm going to fix you some breakfast, which is our lunch because we don't eat breakfast at breakfast time. And then I'm going to go back in there and say I'm going to start at noon. So, but we are talking carrots today. And 3 pages of notes on carrots. I love growing carrots. Now, you could literally grow carrots inside. I mean, in your house. And so let's talk about that first. And then we'll talk about growing carrots outside and some of the tricks that I do to make it so that I have more carrots that germinate. Now, when I grow carrots inside, I want to have carrots that don't take a lot of days, 45, 50, 60 days. If you can have carrots that are fast growing, you could literally have 5 to 6 different crops of carrots in a year in your house. And Lisa is here. Hi, Lisa. How are ya? Lisa, I was just saying I had a morning, but everything's okay now. So if you're growing them inside, so because we're going to talk about that first, you have to grow them in a pot or some kind of container. If you're going to grow carrots, shorter carrots, which do grow faster, you would need a pot at least 8 inches deep. If you wanted carrots that did take a little bit longer, but you want those longer carrots, a pot that's 12 inches will work really well. And so like if an 8-inch pot, there's like carrots that are called little fingers, half Danvers are good carrots like that. So when you're going and you're exploring different varieties of carrots, you want to get some ones that, anywhere from 2 or 3 inches to 5 inches. That 8-inch pot will be okay with that. But if you want carrots that are 6 or 8 inches long, you really have to have a pot that's 12 inches. So like a regular Danvers is a great carrot to grow in those. A rainbow carrot is a great one because they're usually fairly thin, and they grow even if they're crowded. But I do like the idea that growing them inside, you could get easily 5 crops a year. Now you do have to have a grow light or some kind of light that will help your carrots grow. I like shop lights, but I do have some grow lights also. Carrots are a low nitrogen crop. So you don't want to put a fertilizer that has a lot of nitrogen in it. You will get a lot of tops, but not very much on the carrot side. And that's the idea, is to have both. You want a balance between the top that's above ground and the bottom that's below ground. So what I do when I grow them inside is, so I have an 8-inch pot that's probably 8 or 10 inches wide, right? I want to put a soil in there that doesn't have a lot of sticks and other debris in there. So if you bought a bag of soil, an easy way to do is just send it through a sieve. And so all those pieces of bark and stuff that are sometimes in bags of soil, you can get out of there. The reason for that is because if you leave them in there, your carrot starts to grow and all of a sudden it bends. It makes double, like it has legs. It's not the straight carrot that we love. I don't actually mind carrots that are wonky, but when I'm growing inside, I want them to be straight. I've done the work with the soil. And so if you're going to add any kind of, I guess, fertilizer, what I like to do, I like to make my own fertilizer. I like to make my own compost. But an easy way to make a fertilizer is a quart jar, 2 or 3 peels of a banana from bananas. So you take 3 bananas, take the peels, put them in that quart jar. Put a half a cup of brown sugar, fill it up with water, and just let it sit for a couple weeks. Strain it off, pour it into another quart jar, and fill it up with water. And that's my fertilizer. But if you were going to buy it, fertilizer, a 5-10-10 is much better for you, so it has very low nitrogen. Okay? Carrots can take a while to germinate, anywhere from 14 to 17 days sometimes. And so that can be kind of frustrating when you're growing them inside. You're waiting, you're looking at them every day, but just be patient. So you put your soil in. Then you can either do little divots that you're going to put the seeds in, or maybe couple little rows in that pot. But I do like to pack the soil down a little teeny bit, just with your hand. Then I'll make the divots or the little rows that I'm going to put it in. If I'm doing divots, like I like to use the back end of a pencil, I'll put 2 or 3 seeds in each one. And I'm just barely putting it into the soil, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. Then I put the seeds, push the soil over top of it, pat it down again, and then I'll water it. You don't want to have a strong water just because it can move the carrot seeds around. Or you can water it from the bottom and just let it soak up. About 2 weeks later, you can just take your scissors and cut the extra ones that are coming up that are too close together. So that is really pretty easy way to do it inside. And I like to have the straight carrots. The temperature inside where you have your carrots growing should be anywhere from 70 to 80 degrees. So it can be by a sunny window, but you do need a light. Once they start to grow, you want a light. If they get too stringy, if you've ever started seeds, sometimes the stalk is way too long. That is a lack of light. But with carrots, one of the things you can do is after you've snipped those extra ones off, you can literally build up the soil a little bit around each of those carrots growing. You don't want to get it onto the leaves at all, but you can push it on if the plant seems to be too leggy. Oh, good. Lisa says, I received the heart you sent me in the mail. So cute. I'm glad you got it. And another thing inside, this is just a trick that I do with my seedlings, and I know a lot of gardeners who do it, is I run a little fan. I think it makes the plant stronger. It makes it so that you don't get that kind of whitish mold on top of soil if it's too wet. I think it helps with dampening off disease. I just think it makes your plant stronger. Now, carrots are not one that really like to be transplanted. Though sometimes in the garden stores, you can get a 6-pack of carrots. And you can carefully do that, but it's really easier just to plant right in the soil that they're going to live in their whole life. So that's how I would do inside. So let's talk about doing outside. Now, carrots grow in a wide range. In fact, I grow carrots down here in Arizona. The first year I had a garden, I grew carrots, and I grew carrots also along by where my banana trees are. It's really protected there. It gets morning sun, and then it's okay the rest of the day. But when we left, I thought I had pulled all the carrots, but obviously I had not pulled all the carrots. And when we came back the next year, there was these huge carrot plants, and they had the big flowers on them, the umbrellas that they make. And a carrot flower is a beautiful thing. But then when the wind came, it scattered those seeds all over. And since then, I have kept carrots every year growing all over the place. Any place where there's water. So around my fruit trees, by my bananas, by my roses, by my cannas, I just have carrots that grow. In fact, I was pulling some weeds this morning, and around every one of my citrus, there are carrots. Because I think I pulled them all, and I don't. They grow later on. They've stayed dormant in the soil for a while. I'm gone. The temperature is hot. They grow, and I have carrots every year. So I haven't actually planted carrots again since that first time, which is kind of fun. But carrots will grow in zones 3 through 10. They do like a pH about 5.8 to 7. But I've grown them in soils that were 7.5 and close to 8, and they have still grown. Depending on your variety, it will take 45 to 120 days for carrots to grow. So it just depends on the type of carrot you decide that you want to grow. And Rudy is here. Rudy, hello. How are you this morning? Well, actually, it's noon. So how are you this afternoon? But when I go to grow my carrots outside, I basically do it the same as I do in that pot. I work the soil. I want to get rid of rocks and branches and hard clumps because I want my carrots to be straight. And so I'll just work that, down a little bit. If I'm growing carrots that are 6 or 8 inches, I'm going to work it farther than if I'm growing carrots that are just 4 or 5 inches. And Lisa says, do you know what it means when my Meyer lemon tree has blossoms on it? Will I get fruit on it? Yes. If is your lemon tree inside or outside? If it's outside, the insects will do it all. If it's inside, you would be good to take a paintbrush and kind of hand pollinate it around. You will get more lemons that way. And but citruses are basically self-fertile. But I do like when I used to have lemons in Wyoming and we moved them back and forth, when they blossomed, I just used a paintbrush, or you could use a Q-tip and just go from flower to pollinate them. And Troy Sutton is in here. Hi, Troy. How are ya? Rudy says, Sandi, been to cloud 9. Rudy. Okay, so we're outside. We've worked our soil. We're in the garden or the raised beds, wherever you're going to plant them. You could plant them in pots outside also, not just inside. And I have done that many times when I've used up all my garden space back in Wyoming, and I still wanted to grow carrots. I've just used great big pots, and I've done the carrots right in there. But I've worked my soil, and I remember, they don't want nitrogen, right? So you don't want to add. Oh, okay. So Lisa's answering my question that they're outside in a pot. So the bees will do everything. You shouldn't have to do anything, and the different other pollinators, they're just naturally in your yard. Should do everything. You shouldn't have to do anything. So back to the carrots. So if I haven't had space, I have these great big pots, and I'll just fill them with dirt, and I'll grow my carrots in there. But it's the same way. After I work my soil, I pat it down a little bit. Usually, honestly, I do them in rows. I mean, there are people that just scatter the carrot seeds and then top it off with either soil or vermiculite. And in fact, vermiculite is a good thing when you're working your soil if you want to add some vermiculite into your soil, just because it holds so much water and it will release to the plant. And so that's kind of a nice thing to do. Worm compost is another thing you could add to your soil to really help your carrots grow. So anyway, I usually work my soil, I pat it down, I just take a lot of times the edge of a hoe and I just make my rows and I just sprinkle my seeds in there. And then I just push it over and I pat it down again. And for most people, that's all they will do. They will just let it, they'll keep it watered, not too wet because they don't want the carrot seeds to go all over. But I've done a few different things. I have laid newspaper down over top of them and just held it down with wood or stones or bricks or something. I've used cardboard to do that in that germination period because most carrots are 14 to 17 days before they germinate. But what I found actually that works the best, which is a crazy thing to think about, is after I've patted that down, the seeds are in the soil, I lay aluminum foil over top of it. And then I'll hold it down with wood or rocks or bricks or stones on the ends and then a couple places on the edges. Because I like to do it in rows and I like to plant my carrots in between. Sometimes it's in between radishes. Sometimes it's in between onions or leeks, lettuce. I've grown it in between. And what I found with aluminum foil, which is so weird, and I do not know why this works. I honestly don't. Maybe it's the heat retention that the aluminum foil is heating up the soil and it's holding that water in. It can't evaporate through newspaper or cardboard. It will germinate faster. I don't know why it will germinate faster. I can guess. But every single time I have laid aluminum foil down over where I planted the carrots, they germinate more like 7 to 10 days. So it's a lot of difference. And then I just take up the aluminum foil. You have to, in that very first stage, you want that soil to stay moist. So you're better off lightly sprinkling it several times a day just when they're first starting. And then about that 2-week period, I'm going to thin it out because I want good sized carrots. Not that you could leave it like that, but your carrots are they're not the straight carrots, and they can twist and turn when they're too crowded in there. Now, sometimes you're busy and you just got it in and they're growing and you just don't want to do anything. Just let them grow. Seriously, it's a garden. They're carrots. They know what to do. Carrots don't care if they twist around each other. I mean, it's a little more work getting the dirt off them around the carrots. But I've just found that once they start growing, if I want to thin them, I can just take my scissors. I'm not pulling. I'm not going to disturb the roots. Carrots don't like having a lot of weeds or anything around them. So using a hoe early up and down those rows can really help the overall growth of your carrots later. But when it gets to a certain point, and if the weeds are still coming up, you're better off cutting those weeds off instead of yanking them out, because what happens is it disturbs the carrot roots too much, and you can end up pulling part of your carrots because the weed roots can spread out so much faster. So that's just something I do. Carrots are interesting because they're so light, the seeds. You can literally have 19,000 carrot seeds in just 1 ounce. I mean, seriously, 1 ounce of carrot seeds, almost 20,000 seeds. I I find it crazy. Now, what colors do carrots come in? One of my favorite things to grow is rainbow carrots because it comes in a lot of colors. But you can literally get them in yellow, red, orange, white, purple, and one that's almost black. And then sometimes the dark purple ones, they'll have kind of rings inside with lighter and darker. And they're just a beautiful carrot. Some places, depending on where you live, you can have issues with carrots. You can have bug issues with carrots, like carrot fly, different carrots, bugs and diseases. But there are some things you can plant around it to confuse the bugs, at least. Like you can plant your carrots by herbs, rosemary, sage, wormwood. Those scents of those plants will confuse, like carrot fly. You can put over floating row covers once the carrots start to come up. You can put the floating row covers from the beginning if you wanted to. You just can lift it up and weed it. But that can help. Plus, it kind of breaks if it's really hot that summer. That floating row cover kind of cools it and keeps the moisture a little bit longer in between waterings, because you do want to water your carrots. Now, what about you've gone through the whole season? You got these beautiful carrots. You've thinned, you've weeded, you've watered. How are you going to store all those carrots? Because you can get a lot of carrots in a 10-foot row or a 30-foot row of carrots. If your family loves fresh carrots only, then the best place to store them is in the ground. When it gets colder, you can put layers of straw over top of it. A lot of times, what we've done is we don't have a heated garage back in Wyoming, but I have these big garbage cans, and so I'll put straw, and then I'll start I'll put a layer of carrots and straw and carrots, and I usually leave about, that must be about an inch of the green top on the carrot. And because it's cold out in my garage and that straw is kind of insulating it, it seems to work really fine. I do that with potatoes too. And then I always put the largest ones on the bottom and work my way up, because the smaller they are, the faster they will get soft and stuff like that. You can always store some carrots in your crisper. You could, I haven't tried this, but there are people that will use damp sand, and they'll put the carrots in between layers of that, but I have not tried that. Barb says, please remember to wear a mask when you're handling vermiculite to avoid inhaling the dust. EPA states that we should assume that it's contaminated with asbestos. See, that is interesting, Barb, and I have not heard that before. I use vermiculite a lot, and I have not used a mask, but I'll do some research on that. Thank you for that tip. Awesome. Now, what can you do with your other carrots? You don't want to store it. You want to do something with them. You can can them. You can pickle them. You can ferment them. You could freeze them. You could dehydrate them. You could freeze dry them. You can actually make jam out of them. I have some recipes for carrot jam. You could freeze them and then add them later to casseroles and stews, and just use them all through the winter until you can grow more carrots again. There's a lot of things to do with carrots. Now, what about those great big huge long carrots that you see in the gardening magazines and the seed catalogs? They're 2-3 feet long. How do you grow those? Well, actually, I have grown those before. And so what I did, if you had some big barrels, that would work good. But I didn't have any big barrels. So I was looking all around what I could do. And I do have beehives, though. And I have beehives that I don't use. I have more than what I actually use. And so I took my oldest ones and just the super, nothing inside, just the super. And I stacked them. I think I must have had 1, 2, 3. I must have had 4 supers, maybe 3. Can't remember now. But the deep ones. And I put it on concrete, and I filled the whole thing with sand. Okay. And then I took my garden hose and I got that sand really damp. Then I took, it must have been about 2.5, 3 inches PVC pipe that went down, not all the way to the bottom, but it was over, easily over 2 feet. I think it was probably 2.5 feet, 3 feet of this PVC pipe. So I put my hand on the top of it, and I pushed it down into that sand. And because your hand and you're pushing it through that sand, it makes a little suction, and you can pull it all the way out, and there's a hole all the way down that sand because the sand is wet, and so it's not going to move. And then I had taken soil that I had sieved, so there was no particles. It was just light, loose soil. And I had a funnel, and I filled up that whole pipe that, where I had pulled out that sand. And I grew those long carrots in that. It was so fun. And in my beehive, I got, I think it was 15 holes in there. And so then I planted 2 or 3 seeds. I picked the strongest one, and I just nipped the other 2 with my scissors, and then I let that grow. And Lisa, send me an email, because I don't have my carrot recipe here, but we'll be back in Wyoming at the end of March, and send me an email, and I will send you that carrot recipe for the carrot jam. I could probably look at one online, but that's not the one, I don't know if it would be the same as mine back home. So send that to me, or send me that email, and I'll get it to you. So where I set those beehives, it got full morning sun and just a little bit into the afternoon. So easily it had the 6 to 7 hours of sunshine, and then it was in the shade the rest of the time. And those carrots just grow and grow and grow. Now, one of the things that people in the United States, they only eat certain parts of their vegetables, like carrots. They eat the carrot itself. The greens, they either throw away, they give them to their animals, or they throw them in the compost pile, right? But carrot tops are so delicious. I love taking carrot tops and chopping them up and adding them into just a fresh salad. It gives it a great extra taste. You can dry them and powder it up and then add it into soups and casseroles in the wintertime. But another thing you can do is you can literally dehydrate those green tops. I wash them first, pat them dry, and then I put them in my dehydrator. And when they're all the way dry, I grind them up, and it literally makes carrot flour that you can use when you can add it to some bread. You can add it to whatever, you can't use it as the entire flour, but you can certainly add a cup of it, and it gives you this other extra taste in whatever you're baking or cooking. And so that's just kind of one of those things to do. And I just don't like wasting. It's like radishes in the United States. What do we eat? We eat the radish. We don't do anything else with the rest of the plant. Now, if you had a problem with flea beetles, the top of the radish, they probably have eaten the top. But if the radish leaves are good, you can add that to your salads. You can add it to your soups. Then if you let one make the stalk, you can eat the flowers. Or when it makes that pod that has the seeds in it, I've pickled those. I've eaten them raw. I've added them in stir fries. They're just so good. Because why not? Use all the parts of the vegetable. It's just like cabbages. What do? We grow a beautiful cabbage, and we break off all those outside leaves. We either throw them in the garbage, throw them in your compost, or you give them to your animals. But all those outside leaves, I love to just chop them all up, put them in freezer bags. And then when I want to go to make a soup or a stew in the wintertime, I can just grab one of those bags of cabbages and eat it like that. Those outside leaves on a red cabbage, when you dehydrate them, it does a reaction and it becomes sweeter, and it's almost like eating candy. So it's just things to think about. And we're at our 30 minutes. And once again, I apologize. I had one of those mornings and I wasn't here at 9 o'clock when I was supposed to be. So I appreciate all you guys that pop in because you want to learn about carrots. And I do love carrots. And I have some rainbow carrot seeds that when I get back to Wyoming, if any of you would like some, I'll certainly mail them to you. And I have grown these kind of carrots, and lots of people I know I've given them to that have grown them, and they have just loved them. So everybody have a great day. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. My sister is coming tomorrow. Her and her husband are flying in, and they're going to be here till Thursday. And on Thursday, I am flying to San Francisco to see my son and daughter-in-law. And I have never been to their place in San Francisco. And, well, they live south of San Francisco. I'm totally excited about that. But thank you so much. I hope you grow some carrots this year. And at the end of the season, if you leave some of your carrots, the next season they will grow the flower. Sometimes, if you have a weird summer, they'll grow the flower that same year. And you will have as many carrot seeds as you will ever want. And look who's here. US Freedom 5. Hello. And there's Penny. These are all fantastic advice. I have dried the tops and skins, peels in my dehydrator before adding them to dog food. That is a great idea too. And Penny, I totally apologize. I just had one of those mornings. It was just, that's all I'm going to say about it. One of those mornings. So I appreciate all you guys popping in, and have a great weekend. And I will see you soon. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.